Aha, success.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for another conversation about the 24 behaviors. I am Megan Phillips of the Train with Trust Project, here with Jody Ambrose, co-founder of the Train with Trust Project. And today we are joined by Kathryn Lauritzen of Podma Video, who was the mind behind and the creative force behind and director of the 24 behaviors of the Ridden Horse in Pain, shifting the paradigm of how we see lameness film. And of course, joined by Dr. Sue Dyson, whose research and work is the focus of that film. So the film was released just a little bit over 3 years ago, and so we have all been working hard in our own ways to help further the impact of the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram, and the impact of this story that is so relatable to so many equestrians. And we wanted to take a look back and see what changes we have seen, what impacts the film has had, and the RHpE, Ridden Horse checklist, has had in the world of horse sports and equestrian care in general. So I am going to put up our PowerPoint here in a moment so that everybody can view things as we go along. Um, and let me just pull that up real quick. I have to find all these pages. Okay, here we are. So, again, just to reiterate, Train with Trust Project is a nonprofit organization, and we exist to promote the use of evidence-based training practices and to just make animal behavior information in general available and accessible to people. So, if you are pleased with what you're finding with all of our work and our resources, feel free to look us up and provide a donation. With that being said, again, we want to talk about the impacts of this film and of the underlying research of Dr. Sue Dyson and her colleagues in putting together the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram, or the Ridden Horse Pain Checklist. Ridden Horse Checklist goes by a few different names. Um, and we wanted to look at a couple of different areas specifically. What we have seen in terms of advancing the awareness of the 24 behaviors and the general concept of listening to horses and understanding them better. And then also want to take a look at some really exciting areas where, because of the 24 behaviors ethogram, and the message of the film being spread so widely, that there have been really some advances in welfare knowledge and science around equine welfare. Um, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pop into the background. I'll be available to receive any of your questions or comments. And I will have some links throughout here also that I'll be posting in the comments as we refer back to previous conversations we've had and some other things. So with that being said, I'm going to turn things over to Jody, and we can carry on with our discussion.
Okay, so I love this slide, how this slide turned out, because it has the three logos stacked on top of each other. And when I think about the film and everything that's happened since, I think of it as a really successful collaboration between the three organizations represented there, um, in achieving those bullet points: advancing awareness and advancing welfare knowledge and science. But I want to talk up to Sue and Kath about really where this started. What were your hopes and intentions for making this film as the executive producers? And then if you can both talk a little bit about where it's gone and where that has achieved or potentially surpassed your expectations?
Well, I guess we started because we had worked together on the Equitopia course, and it was very educational. And because horse behavior and horses that seem to be in conflict is a universal truth with people, everyone who has a horse experiences it. So we had a leg up on hitting the core, really, of what almost everyone experiences, which is at the heart of a good film, you're going to hit some really universal truths, you hope. So in after doing the course together, we thought, well, there's some really good stories here, like, because it hurts. It's not just educational, it hurts to have a horse that is in conflict, that you love, and you're trying so hard to have a good time together, to be happy together, to have an adventure together. And yet the horse is being resistant, or your trainer is telling you it's being naughty, or worse, you get hurt, or the horse seems to get hurt. And everyone has experienced that. So we wanted to wrap it in a story so people could relate to it. And Sue's behavior is so strong. It's not just 5 horses or 10 horses, it's thousands of horses over the course of years. And she herself has a background in training and had a horse, she trained go to the Olympics. So it's like when you put all that package together, it's how do we do this and how do we deliver it to an audience that is almost like just primed for it.
Yeah,
So that was the start.
that's such a great point, because as you know, when Megan was doing the introduction, she said that Sue's work is the center of the film. But the truth is, really, the center of that film is the emotion, the story, Lauren and Galena and the other people that were involved, and exactly what you're talking about, the emotional rawness of going through that. And that's what made it so relatable. And that's why it was so smart to go that direction, because a course is a fabulous thing, and people that are seeking that information need courses like the Equitopia course and the Horses Inside Out course, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But that story is what makes the connection, what draws people in and reaches people. And do you know the numbers of how many people have seen the film exactly?
It says 458,000, right?
Oh, sorry, I have it on the wrong view. I didn't know she'd switched the. There it is, 458,000 views as of yesterday, and that's on YouTube. And you guys decided to make it available for free on YouTube. Can you talk a little bit? Can one of you talk a little bit about that?
I think it was really important that it was available to anybody. The whole point of the film was to be educational and to draw people in through telling a story and to make everybody aware that they're not alone, because so many people go down this journey. Now, some of the owners are in denial, but by seeing this film, they may raise their awareness that they should not be in denial. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that your horse has got a problem. It's not a reflection of you, it's what happens in the real world. And I think it's important that people learn this. If you have horses, there are going to be lame horses in your life, sadly. And to see this film acknowledges that. And the film also highlights the issue that the trainer may be of a different opinion, but the use of the ridden horse checklist enables you perhaps to challenge the trainer and say, well, I'm absolutely sure, based on the horse's behavior, that it must be experiencing discomfort. And that's empowering for the owner. And that's why we wanted to make it available to absolutely everybody, because the important thing with research is to get the message out. It's no point doing research unless the information is spread as widely as possible. And to put the film on YouTube was a wonderful way to give access to anybody who wants to see it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, courses are great and membership programs are great. But this really was a passion project to reach as many people as possible, because is so empowering. And that's a big part of our mission with the Train with Trust project, is to make this stuff accessible and empower people to do their own, to make their own progress and to do their own work to help their own horses. But that's not to say that it doesn't have to be valuable media. And I think that's been borne out by the success that it's had. Can you guys talk a little bit about the film festivals and the reception, the critical reception that the film has received?
Well, yeah, we did film festival. We did a couple. We more the equestrian stuff, and then Try On was really great because from the film perspective more than the horse perspective, it was great because they took us kind of out of the equestrian division, and it ended up winning short form documentary for the whole festival. So that was a thrill. And I think it spoke to non-horse people, which is great too, because there's a real climate right now of people out there online fighting over horses and what, within the horse community, everybody's fighting and what we should and shouldn't be doing. And then beyond that, there's people that misunderstand or don't understand or want to understand the horse world. And I think it kind of spoke to everybody a little bit. Like we do care, we can do better.
Yeah, I think the timing of it was really fortunate because, Megan and I have been doing this kind of work for almost 2 decades, but the shift in the conversation online in particular, but in the show world as well, over welfare really kicked into high gear, I think, right around the time that this film came out. So it was really fortunate timing. And as far as appealing to non-horse people, I know we did a screening, the 4 of us, for a zoo trainer organization involving international zoo workers that were all fascinated by it and took a lot away from it and are helping spread the message. And almost none of them were actually horse people. And I know, Sue, you've spoken to a number of large groups that have done screenings all over the world, right?
Yes. I mean, I think that if I think about the projects I've been involved with throughout my career as a veterinarian, this has undoubtedly had the biggest impact. And I think when you see this quote from the magazine Concordia, which says this might be one of the most life-changing 35 minutes in the life of any equestrian, is the way in which many people have received the film, because I think that seeing the checklist put into a real life situation, as was demonstrated in this film, and seeing the way that Lauren, the rider, had this big beaming smile over her face when we had removed the pain from her horse through the use of nerve blocks, that spoke for itself in terms of the impact that it could potentially have on any rider. So it's easy to relate to, and it's just so rewarding that other people have evaluated the film in the same way.
Yeah, and one of the other things that really is an indication of what a quality film it was is that it was picked up by major streaming platforms. It was picked up by Equus Television Network, and it was also available on all the other major platforms, Roku and Hulu and those kinds of things. That that's not something that this kind of information you would expect to be able to find on there. So I think it reached an audience that absolutely never would have known about any of the science behind it, but it got it in front of their eyes and made it something worth watching, which is something I think has never been done before that I can.
No, and we hope it makes people talk about it with their friends too.
Right, exactly.
They see a film and they talk. They might read something on Facebook and they don't necessarily talk about it, but they see a film and inevitably they're going to talk to their friends. So there's a ripple effect.
Exactly. I think that's the theme of all of this, is just how this has had an impact and given people power, that you don't have to go to vet school to have a real impact on your horse's soundness and welfare. We mentioned this Concordia. This was a special edition of their publication that they really featured. I think this was the first press that we got early on, and that's a group that's doing a lot of hard work to empower people with welfare knowledge. It's been in, I think, a number of other major publications as well.
Yeah, but around the world.
Around the world, right. And yes, and that's another great point, is this was not just a UK or US focused push. That we will talk a little bit about the reach of this information in a few slides. And Sue, you've been on a lot of podcasts, right?
Yes, I'd never done podcasts before, so this was a novel experience, but I think it seems to be a really good way of spreading the word and being able to talk in practical terms that horse people understand. And yeah, it's been a wonderful opportunity, and I know that many people have listened because I get a lot of feedback from individuals.
Yeah, this is sort of the most recent way that people are getting their information, and there's so many podcasts, and I think some of them are really, really great and very incisive. And if you're listening to this and you have a podcast, or you listen to an equestrian themed podcast, and you'd like to hear more about Sue's work, the Train with Trust Project's work, Kath's work, that this film in particular, or the 24 behaviors in particular, reach out to the people that do those podcasts, and we're working hard to make sure that this message continues to be spread. The film is always going to be out there for people to watch, and well, 458,000 people is a lot. There's still a lot of people out there that it can reach. So please let us know if there's a podcast that you think would be interested, and that's something that we're going to continue to do.
You guys have done a great job keeping it going, because films tend to, hit a fever pitch and then drop off. And you guys have just kept it going. So thank you.
Well, that was intentional.
Awesome.
That Megan and I are impact producers on the film, specifically because you had that intention of not letting it drop, and you came to and asked us to do that work to keep it going, which was a part of our mission already. And so the ways that we have done that are having these Facebook Lives with Sue pretty much every month or more frequently. And then we've also created a bunch of free downloads that are available on trainwithtrustproject.org, which you can go to the website and go to our free downloads. And there's an illustrated field guide. We worked really, really hard with Sue and with an artist named Melissa Cho, who illustrated all 24 behaviors, which was not an easy task because they're not static behaviors. A lot of them involve motion. So getting fixed illustrations was a labor of love that we did for many weeks, and getting them into a format that people can download onto their phone and use the ethogram. That's available. We're making it available for free so that it's accessible and people will use it. And then we went a step further and created a bunch of different checklists as sort of companion tools for the field guide. And those are also available for free. And that's all part of our intentional work to increase and spread the impact of the original film. So I mentioned about the reach. It's not just a UK or we're in the US and Sue's in the UK, and we didn't want to just limit it to our own culture, our own country. And so this is a list, I believe, of the countries, Sue, where you've been speaking. Is that correct?
Yes, I missed off Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, but
It's funny.
it should be there.
I was comparing this to the list of visitors to our website. And I was like, oh, I think this is a pretty similar list to people that have come to our website. But UAE is a place where we actually have quite a lot of followers in Dubai. We have a lot of followers. And so this is definitely, you know, there's horses all over the world. And it's not just English speaking people and you know, Western world people that care about their horses. And so I think that's one of the coolest things that's come from both the ethogram and the film, is that it has reached so broadly across a global audience. So you want to talk a little bit about some of the studies and
Well, this just reflects the number of different, or a spectrum of the journals from a variety of different countries, which have picked up on the checklist. Some of them are just horse centric magazines. Others are specifically for those people who are involved in various types of therapy, be it physiotherapy, chiropractic, or osteopathy or massage, and also those that are involved with veterinary medicine. So it was picked up very early on by this textbook that was released earlier this year, and to have the checklist within a recently published textbook which focuses on sports medicine in the horse, I think is very forward thinking of the editors and a good way of disseminating information too.
that's huge, because and that's one of our other focuses has been to reach not just veterinarians, but veterinary students and people that are interested in going to vet school, and as well as vet techs, because they have that ripple effect. You know, one veterinarian or one vet tech is going to interact with just an exponential number of horse owners. And so sharing this information with them has just an outsized impact, and having it in a textbook is a legitimacy that will, again, like the film, continue to exist for years and reach a lot of people. And it, you know, as we mentioned, it's a global impact, and we've seen the effects in the international competition world. Sue, can you talk a little bit about your experience with top level competition horses?
Yeah, there are several national federations that have been discussing the use of the Ridden Horse Performance Checklist and have embraced it, and are teaching their judges about it, which I think is a big step forward. At the Paris Olympic Games, in the warm-up area, which was an area that was not accessible to the general public, there was a veterinarian who was employed by the organisers of the games to apply the Ridden Horse Performance Checklist to the horses warming up, and to report any issues that she perceived to the stewards, so that this was being used as a welfare tool at the Olympic Games, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
It's incredible, because you know that it's something that you don't have to say, I think, or this horse looks, or you know, there's something about this that is off. You can really pinpoint it, and it empowers people to have those conversations on a level that's not just going to be opinion or subjective or emotional. It empowers them to be able to really identify what is the issue and how do we address it.
Yes, and there are some discussions about potentially, when judging dressage, of the possibility of having a separate judge judging harmony. And if they were to judge harmony, it would be effectively by the absence of so many of the behaviors of the Ridden Horse checklist. And that, I think, would be an important step forward in terms of legitimizing the sport of dressage for some people who find it a rather distasteful sport. If the whole picture became across the board a more harmonious relationship between the horse and the rider, so that the horse looked happier most of the time.
I really think that that's the direction that things are going to have to go, not just because we want it to, but because so much of the heightened emotion and the conversation that happens is criticism and tearing people down. And we have to go in a direction of providing actionable, changes to be made.
Absolutely. We need to lead change and be seen to be leading change with the benefit of the horse as the priority before we get knocked back by the public.
Yeah.
So, for example, steeplechasing is outlawed in Australia, other than one state. We don't want that to happen. And if we're not going to the other horse sports, and I believe that we need to be proactive if we're not going to be restricted in what we can do.
Yeah, and there's public, there's the fact now that everyone has a cell phone, and everyone can freeze frame that one bad image and then put it out as if this is the whole thing that's going on. And sometimes it is, and sometimes that needs to get out, but bottom line, for the love of the horse, you have to strive for harmony. Just in your one personal relationship, it's why we're here. It's why you ride. It's why you try. It's why we have horses. We love them. But it is possible to love and abuse something at the same time, and it happens all the time, and it happens in human relationships. So the goal is always going to have to be to get better in our lifetime. And, it's astounding to me that dressage started out as trying to be in harmony with your horse, and it has gone so far to the other direction. And even to the point of, you look at racing and where horses break down on the track and are taken out, in an ambulance. And yet the public focuses on the facial expressions of the dressage horse.
Yeah.
It's really, sociologically, it's an interesting what has happened.
It really is. And I studied communications in college, and I remember, one of the first things I learned is that if people are having a conversation but focusing on two different things and using different language or using the same language to mean different things, there is no way to reach common ground. And really, we've talked a lot in these lives about the more knowledge that people have and the more agreed upon facts that we can have, the more likely we are to find solutions. Maybe not common ground, necessarily agreeing on what's right or wrong, because some people are always going to feel that, riding horses is unacceptable. And some people are going to always feel that, gold medals are what matters. But if we're having conversations, if the people that are coming to the table have common language that they agree means the same things, that's really the path towards having some sort of consensus.
It's rough. And let me ask you, what do you think common ground is? Like, bottom of all bottom lines, where's the starting point
For horse sports?
Yeah, or not just sports, but just horses.
For horses. That's a really great question, Kathy.
Sorry.
I don't think that you can have common ground with someone who doesn't. One thing that always blows me away when I hear it is people saying that, horses don't have emotions or aren't sentient beings, basically, don't feel pain, or, there is that extreme. I think common ground has to start from a place of that horses are sentient beings that have, a right to friends, forage, and freedom. They have a right to express themselves, and that two-way communication is an essential part of our interactions with horses, that it's not just a one-way relationship, where we decide what the horse needs to do and the horse has to do it. So for me, I don't think I can have a productive conversation with someone that can't get to that point. And that's, again, we're not talking about science or facts. That's just sort of an undercurrent that has to happen. But I think anyone who takes an interest in body language and behavior of horses, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for that two-way communication. How do I know what my horse is feeling and thinking? And that's really where the power comes from of the ethogram and any other equine behavior knowledge that you gain, is that you're trying to be able to discern what an animal's feeling when they're nonverbal. And so I think that common ground comes from, okay, we can agree that there is some feeling, some communication coming from this horse. And then to take that a step further, like the study that produced the 24 behaviors ethogram, the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram, discerned that these behaviors more likely than not indicate pain, indicate discomfort. And if there are a certain number of these behaviors, it's extremely likely. And if there are fewer, then that's the time to intervene and change something, because you're going in a direction where that horse is experiencing negative feelings and thoughts. So for me, that's a case. Sue, do you have an opinion on what common?
I just wanted to say that I feel that we all have done wrong in the past. We have to be able to hold up our hands and
100%.
admit we have done wrong, but we're going to try and do better. We are striving to do better, and we're learning all the time, and we need to take into account all that new knowledge and be seen to change.
I totally agree with that. And I was talking to somebody the other day about, when some of these really horrific videos have come out of, big name riders and trainers doing things that, the general public feels, are abusive. I know a lot of people including myself, who've seen certain things and thought, oh, well, I've seen that plenty of times and it's normalized. But outrage just feeds the algorithm. Getting mad about it and canceling that person doesn't get us to a place where we have a solution. We start doing things differently, because it's not an isolated incident of one person doing something wrong. It's a normalized attitude of, this horse owes me and won't give me what I'm owed. And so I need to, by any means necessary, get that horse to do the behavior I want it to do. And I think we need to agree that, again, with this understanding the reasons behind it, the emotions and feelings that the horse is having, then that changes that paradigm completely. Because if the horse is not giving us the behavior, what is it we change about ourselves in order to make it so that horse will give us what we're looking for? Or maybe that horse can't give us what we're looking for. And it's those conversations that really change riders. And I see it all the time with my clients that, when they start recognizing body language, when they start looking for these conflict behaviors, they can't unsee them. That's something I hear all the time, is once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And I think that is the power of spreading this knowledge, is that when we help people see it, they can't unsee it. And they're going to act differently. And that's all we can ask. Like you said, we've all done wrong. It's how we were taught. It's what was modeled for us. And that's how horse knowledge gets spread. We don't have universities teaching this stuff. We have individuals having a ripple effect. One trainer who teaches a certain way has a huge effect on riders all over their area. And the more successful they are, the more impact they have. So one person having this knowledge and doing differently has just as much of an outsized effect in the other direction.
That's brilliant. I love that. You're totally right. on all counts.
So speaking
I
of
mean it.
speaking of impact and harmony, looking for more harmony, Kath, tell us more about horses and the science of harmony.
So this was the second film, a little bit of a follow-up to 24 Behaviors. And what happened was we started thinking about what you were talking about, Jody, of, trying to understand what the horse is feeling from a scientific perspective. So what's the cutting edge? How far can we get out there with what we think we know, knowing that you have 1,000,000 miles left to go? And so we also wanted to have a story. So we looked at Bubby Upton, who is a 5-star event rider who had a horse fall over on her, crushed some vertebrae, and how she got back in the saddle. And Bubby was a perfect topic because she tries to do everything the best she can, and she has the wherewithal to do it. So she studies, she works, she loves horses, like over the top, all of it goes to 11 with everything. So that was Bubby's story. And then every time Bubby spoke about something, we were able to cut away to, if she talked about touching her horses, we could cut away to the science of how a horse experiences touch. And so we were very senses heavy. So we were able to look at how a horse sees the world. They don't see red, and that really impacts everything. A horse hears an ultrasonic sounds, meaning it can hear frequencies we don't even hear. We can't even imagine what that frequency sounds like. We don't have the ability to do it. So when you start putting together a horse's senses, you realize that when you walk up to it, it's experiencing the world very differently than we are. And that's a starting point for understanding them. And the more we understand them, the better we can do for them. And we also looked at the neurological stuff that's really practical. So if you're riding your horse and you keep your legs on them, just on them for too long without a break, neurologically, they stop feeling it. And so we try to look at the way that we can push our understanding of horses forward in a kind of practical way and tell the story. And hopefully that also has an impact. And it was fascinating for me. I mean, I'm a lifelong horse person. It kind of cracked my mind open a little bit to, I can't take for granted, like when you're walking along and they spook and you go, oh, stop it. It was nothing.
Mhm.
What? You go, well, maybe they heard something you just don't even hear. And we can't even, and the weird thing is, we can't even replicate it. We can't even say, hey, maybe you're seeing frequencies, or you're seeing, like a bee sees ultraviolet. And maybe we think it's flying through purple all the time. So the bee is in a purple world, we're in our world. We can't even replicate it, so we think we know what they're seeing because it's so out there. So yeah, it cracked my mind open a little bit, and I love it. You could really nerd out.
Well, it's that next step in what we were talking about earlier about seeing your horse as a separate being with its own thoughts and feelings and emotions, and trying to understand and communicate both ways. Like if I remember having that revelation years ago with Temple Grandin's first book, Animals in Translation, and her connecting the way animals perceive the world to autism. Mm-hmm. And I've followed a lot of autistics, explaining, very eloquently how they perceive the world, and learned a lot from that in my work with animals, because it is stepping outside yourself and not making assumptions about another being's experience of the world. Yeah. And I just love that this was the follow-up, because it's understanding that horses are in pain is not the only thing we need to know. We need to know all of their feelings about and thoughts about the world, and understanding their 5 senses is and what their needs are that are different from ours. Any relationship, human relationships too, like you've got to be able to step outside yourself and understand. And I just love that this was where your brain went for the next step, because it is like going down that rabbit hole, following that, that lead. that is going towards the direction that's the ultimate goal of understanding our horses.
And we wanted to promote the fact that it can be done well. We didn't want to have a constantly negative picture
Right.
of the equine world. It can be done well, and that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are just doing their best, and with the more knowledge they gain, the better they do.
Yeah.
And again, wrapping that up in a story like Bubby's story, and with all the amazing experts that you guys got for this film, it shows that it can be put into practice and be relatable. It's not just going to vet school or having to become an equine body worker. You can empower yourself as just an average horse owner. And I will also say that this film won a bunch of awards recently and is just as good a film as the first one if people haven't seen it. And it's also available on YouTube for free. Sue, you want to talk about this?
Yes, I think this is a powerful paper because this is a collaborative paper between three authors from Australia, two of which were initially somewhat critical of the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram and how it was developed, but now they have come to recognize its worth. And this brought us together to emphasize that behaviors that have been put in a box as representing conflict behavior actually may reflect pain, and how we need to be differentiating between what is conflict behavior. And conflict behavior basically is the result of the horse being given conflicting cues. So, for example, if you're riding the horse and you've got excessive rein tension, and yet you're kicking with your legs or applying leg cues, then you're giving conflicting information to the horse. And the horse is going to react by changing in its behavior because it doesn't understand what it's being asked to do. But there is an overlap in terms of the behaviors that are exhibited as a result of that conflict with those that are the result of pain. And this paper dissects this and tries to differentiate and discuss all the things that we have to consider when we're seeing changes in a horse's behavior. So I think that this is, for me, a landmark paper in bringing together scientists from different backgrounds and coming together to have a collaborative approach and a consensus of opinion, which is really important, I think, in the scientific world, because we, particularly within the equine world, we have differences of opinions, both in the scientific world and in the equine world. And I'm not sure that some of those differences of opinions are very healthy because it makes us look very uncohesive. Whereas we need to face the future to be as together as is possible. There are always going to be differences of opinion, but the more we can speak with one voice, the stronger we are. And that's why I think that this is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's almost malpractice for a trainer to not understand this.
Yeah. And then I think we wanted to talk a little bit about what other work has been done with the ethogram. Some of it has been done in association with me, like this study on Icelandic horses. This was a study based in Denmark, in which the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram was applied to a large number of Icelandic horses. It was basically a feasibility study, but it demonstrated that it could be done. It was rather unfortunate that all the horses were horses with musculoskeletal pain. We could not find a normal, in inverted commas, Icelandic horse.
Wow.
And this is a little bit compounded, as you can see, by the size of the riders and the saddle fit for the riders relative to the horse and everything else. So we've got a number of confounding issues here. But suffice it to say, we could not find a comfortable Icelandic horse, despite trying quite hard.
That's fascinating, particularly considering that they are one of the most purebred examples.
Yeah.
People a lot of times are critical of, of crossing the wrong thing to the wrong thing, but they've been breeding for these traits exclusively for generations, and it's that I wasn't aware of this study, but that is interesting for people that don't know. These are 5 gated, correct? Is that they're
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
and they don't allow other breeds into the country, so um, they keep the lines really pure, and so they're crossing horses with pain with other horses with pain.
Hmm.
Has a lot of implications.
And then it's interesting to observe that other people are taking up the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram as part of a tool in their research projects or in their clinical observation projects. So this was a paper that was looking at horses that were not performing normally following previous castration. And they used the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram in order to quantify the behaviors that these horses were showing, demonstrating that they were clearly in discomfort. And this is part of an ongoing trend, I think, for other people to be starting to use the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram as a way of quantifying the presence of discomfort in ridden horses, which previously was not really available.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I saw this and thought, boy, that's really topical because I don't remember anybody talking about post-castration adhesions until, fairly recently in sort of the mainstream world. And a lot of times when something new, quote unquote, new comes along like that, people jump on it and either discount it completely or everything becomes a result of that. And so having that they're doing science to determine the effects, I think is really important to sort of tamp
Yeah.
down that tendency of the horse world to be all or nothing.
I just would put a note of caution that this is not a very common problem, but it does occur.
Right. Yeah. That basically my point is that people hear about it and there's so many geldings
Yeah.
that it's something that, if you want to jump on it and think that it's a cause, it's certainly a potential cause for
Yeah.
the vast majority of riding horses, but we need to know how common it is.
And then I think what is exciting for me is that in the world of the equine gastric ulcer syndrome, it is increasingly being recognized that this may not be a primary problem, and it may, in some horses, not just relate to management, for example, diet and turnout and social interaction, but it may be related to underlying musculoskeletal pain. So, in association with the University of Copenhagen, this was a master's thesis done by Aski Nilsson and Laura Johansson when they were looking at musculoskeletal pain during ridden exercise and signs of pain during tacking up and relating it to equine gastric ulcer syndrome. And this study has now been extended. So now there are video recordings of 50 horses which have undergone a standardized ridden exercise test. The Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram has been applied, and we are relating that to the presence or absence of gastric ulceration. And relating that to the presence or absence of musculoskeletal pain. So I think that this is an exciting development. And if we go to the next slide, other people are picking up on this. So, for example, Fran Yerger, who is an American-based lady who circulates a research list of scientific papers called Hoof Search, she, in the most latest edition, said, could this study lead to more research and widen the use of the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram to help identify pain in more horses? And that's an exciting comment, I think.
Mhm.
And let's go to the next slide. So there was a study done based in Belgium, led by Emmanuel van Urk Westergren, who's a specialist in equine sports medicine. And they did a study in which they took a group of show jumping horses, and they underwent gastroscopy to examine the stomach. And they found a variety of both squamous and glandular ulcers in these horses. Before treatment, they also evaluated these horses ridden. They applied the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram, and then these horses underwent a change in their diet. They did not go on any specific medication, they just underwent a change in their diet. And with the change in the diet, over a period of time, the horses were re-evaluated using gastroscopy, and the severity of the lesions decreased, and that was associated with a decrease in the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram scores. And if we go to the next slide, we can see this depicted graphically. So on the vertical axis, in each of these graphs, the first three from left to right represent the horses with glandular and squamous disease, then the horses with squamous disease, and then the horses with glandular disease alone. The red boxes reflect the score at the start of the investigation, and the blue boxes represent the scores at the end of the investigation. So the gastric ulcer scores all reduced significantly. And in the far right, we can see the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram scores, starting with the red box being pre-treatment and the blue box representing the scores after treatment. And what is notable is that for the vast majority of the horses pre-treatment, they had scores which were higher than after treatment, but they didn't reach the threshold of 8. And that's an important thing. These horses had gastric ulcers. They had relatively high Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram scores compared with what we see in normal horses, but they didn't reach the threshold of 8, and they were reduced after change in the diet. And if we go to the next slide, this just shows a correlation between the ethogram scores and each of the gastric ulcer scores. And we can see that there is a strong linear correlation between the ethogram score and each of the types of gastric ulcer score. So the lower the ethogram score was, the lower the gastric ulcer score was. So this is a beautiful example of how the ethogram can be used for a completely different study. And if we go to the next slide, we can also see that people are using it in a clinical setting as well. So this is a recently published review article discussing problems associated with horses' necks, or the cervical vertebral column. And they highlighted the fact that many of these horses don't show conventional lameness, but they show behavioral signs which are abnormal during ridden exercise. And by the use of the ethogram, they are demonstrating that these now are being recognized as signs of pain, whereas previously they were attributed to behavioral problems or training problems rather than pain.
I want to jump in there just because I'm living this right now. I have a close friend who's also a client, who's also a veterinarian, and she bought a young horse and 2 years ago started tracking every single ride. And his ethogram score is actually relatively low, but what she observed was that the behaviors he does have were increasing in frequency and intensity and becoming more persistent. And because she's been tracking this, it's been very noticeable. And lameness exams really didn't turn up anything actionable. He had some arthritis in his neck, so she suspected impingement. But he was diagnosed with equine gastric ulcer syndrome, and that was treated for a long time and didn't resolve the problems. Well, UC Davis just got a standing CT, And so a couple weeks ago, he was able to get a CT, and he had severe impingement from C5 to C7. And he had an endoscopic formatotomy last week, and he'll have another one next week. And now, because we have 2 years of data of his behavior, we'll be able to specifically track post-rehab whether his symptoms have resolved, because what was blamed on training issues and behavioral for my entire career is now something that science has caught up with and is able to diagnose and treat. And now we have this empowering tool to track his progress post surgery. And it's really amazing to think that this is something that wouldn't have been possible not that long ago, and would have just meant that the horse would live a really unpleasant life or just be retired. And the combination of having a tool to fix it and a tool to evaluate it, that you don't have to be a veterinarian to use, is just
No,
amazing.
absolutely. Yeah.
So we talked earlier about the ripple effect, and we wanted to put in this image because it's something that comes up over and over again about, every single person has the ability to have the kind of impact in one way or another on a lot of lives. So we wanted to talk about what you guys think where do we go from here?
Well, it's a matter of spreading the word. And it's kind of like almost leading horses to water, but teaching them to drink. We have to encourage people, I think, across the board. And the people that we really need to target, I think, are the coaches, and also the young people. The young people are, I think, probably very open to learning. The coaches are more challenging to get involved. They're a harder nut to crack, but I'm hopeful that we will ultimately get there. But it takes time. But I'm excited in terms of the impact we've made so far. It has been quite a big impact, and progress has probably been more rapid than I thought it might be, because the equestrian world is so archaic in its thinking, that I knew it was going to take a long time.
Yeah, but it seems to have hit sort of a critical mass, in my opinion, where things are shifting faster compared to a few years ago. I think social media has pushed things in a certain way, and just the ability to get the information out there. On the previous slide, we had a picture other way. So these are the posters that we sell on our website, and putting one poster up in a barn spreads the knowledge to everyone who comes through that barn. People see you using a field guide on your phone to evaluate your horse and record behaviors. Those kinds of actions, I think, have an outsized impact in the horse world. Seeing other people doing things and learning that other people are changing their ways, I think, is that ripple effect we were talking about, where it might seem like a small thing, but it has a bigger impact.
And I think it's important to say that we're all aware that AI is a new technology that is sweeping the world. I am involved with a French company called Chiron, which is developing an AI-generated way of evaluating your horse's behavior. So this will be something that will facilitate the use of the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram in the future.
Yes,
It's not there yet, but we're working on it.
And there is an app that is making Sue Dyson available inside your phone. You want to talk a little bit about Ridley?
Ridley is a Swedish-based company that specializes in trying to educate riders across the board, and has engaged the expertise of a wide variety of professional people, riders, trainers, farriers, across the board. And they interview people, and they provide interactive quizzes and things. And it's all some stuff that you can do via an app and is readily accessible. and I think is just another way of communicating with the end user. And as I mean, if you subscribe to them, there's a whole host of different people with all sorts of fabulous information.
One of the things that Train with Trust Project is focusing on is spreading this knowledge to children, because they are the next generation, and I don't think there's anything you can do that would have more of an impact than giving access to the people that are going to internalize it and grow up with it. So we are working on programming for 4-H and Pony Club and riding schools, making the information fun and engaging and interesting for kids. But also sometimes they're not burdened by the normalization of the things that we grew up with. And I think they connect with their horses in an emotional way. And so you're starting sort of from ahead of the game with kids. And so we're doing a lot with that. We're also working with different equestrian associations. Sue, I know you've spoken to the United States Eventing Association conference.
Yeah.
We've had some communication with the United States Dressage Federation. Again, if you're listening to this and you belong to a horse organization, it doesn't have to be a competitive organization, doesn't have to be a dressage organization. But if you think this would be a value for the membership of your organization, reach out to us, reach out to them, let us know, because strategic partnerships, I think, are a really big part of how we're having more reach and having more of an effect. One of our strategic partners is Horses Inside Out, and Sue and Jillian did a course recently and are, I believe, making it bigger and better. So you want to talk about that course?
Yes, this is a course which is introduced by 2 webinars, and then there are a large number of video recordings of horses performing a set ridden test, and you can evaluate those at your leisure, and then you can reevaluate them with me giving a commentary about all my observations with respect to movement, behavior, the rider, the tack, etc. This was run this year. The positive feedback was just amazing. We're running it again next year, but it's going to be bigger and better because we're going to have a much larger spectrum of the types of horse that we're using as part of the video footage. And yeah, I think it's tremendous value for money. And those that came this year were full of praise for it in terms of what they saw, and quite a few said it should be a course that everybody should do.
I agree. I took the course and I probably bring it up with students on a weekly basis at least. I thought it was absolutely a huge value for the money, and I will take it again. And I'm saying that as someone who's been using the ethogram for a few years. I learned new things. It really helped me identify which behaviors I'm not as good at seeing and got better at seeing them. It's just a really great hands-on practical course. Really highly recommend it. And there's the original, the OG behaviors course that Kath was instrumental in making. You want to talk about that a little bit, Kath?
Well, Caroline Hagerty, it was her idea, and she wanted to work with Sue and do a course. And you know, the good thing about this course is it systematically breaks things down so that anyone can understand and go deeper into these behaviors. And because they are timed, so it's not like you go, oh, I just see it, and this horse has, its mouth open, therefore. There's specific times. Ears back is timed. It's all timed. So you have to kind of learn it. And it's great. It's a great basic way to learn this. And I would suggest anybody go do it. It's easy to understand. You could stop and pause and think about it. You could take notes. it's good. I just, it was great. It opened my eyes too while producing it. So it was good.
Yeah, I think
Good.
it's different and equally good to Jillian's course. I think it's a little more intensive. The Horses Inside Out course is more of like a self-study. I mean, they're both self-study, but this one is a little bit more like a high level course where you're taking in a lot of and processing a lot of information, whereas I think the other course is a little bit like go at your own speed and has a little bit more leeway for your learning style. But I think they're complementary of each other. I think doing both, if you can afford it, is a brilliant idea. And it's great that both exist so people can do both or choose one or the other depending on how they like to learn. Kath, you want to talk about the bonus footage?
Well, we interviewed something like 24 different experts and asked way too many questions. And so we had so much footage. I mean, hundreds of hours, I think. But there was a lot of little chunks of gems that we didn't make it into the film because the film is already over an hour. And but there's so many little bits of beautiful things that people said that were insightful and just great to know. So we ended up repurposing it. So Horses in the Science of Hearing has extra footage on from the hearing segment. Um, and it's just another way to promote the film and bring people to the film, hopefully. And it's the great stuff that was in there that just didn't make the cut because of editing reasons. So, it was fun to do too. And
Great. I mean, why waste it? These people are just a wealth of knowledge, and
yeah.
it's just would be tragic if we didn't get to see it. And people can find this on YouTube, or it's posted on 24behaviors.org, 24horsebehaviors.org. We post it on our socials if you follow us. And they're little gems.
And I also just posted that link in the chat.
Oh, great.
So people can link to it right from there. And I've put a lot of links for some of the companies and information sources that we've mentioned during this into the chat as well. So it'll be right down here for those who are watching this live now or those who check it out later can go ahead and find those links and reach out for that information.
Awesome. So you want to talk about the book?
The book is a collaborative effort between myself and Sue Palmer, who's a physiotherapist who has always been hooked on the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram. And we felt that we needed to produce a book that described people's experiences of its use. So this book describes not only how the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram was developed and why and how to utilize it, but it also gives owners experiences of the frustrations they've gone through when they've questioned, is their horse in pain or is it a training problem, and the struggles they've had to get proper investigation. And yeah, I think it's a very readable book and is complementary to everything else we've put out.
It's also very accessible, very easy to read. Really great book.
And I will get those links posted in the chat as well as soon as I'm able to, for those of you who are interested in checking out that book. And what with the holidays coming up soon, you might have a friend who wants a copy of Harmonious Horsemanship if you already have yours.
Right.
So it was fun sitting back and looking, we put this all together, so I'm familiar with everything that was in here, but it was really fun sitting back and listening and looking at how much has really come to fruition in terms of everybody's hopes and dreams and will to have this information be known for the benefit of horses and for people, because this, as it affects the animals we love and care about so much, so it affects us. So really fun to sit back and watch that. And we will be speaking with Dr. Dyson again next month, and this will be on Thursday, November 13th at our usual time, but it'll all be different because I think many of us, most of us, are going to have daylight savings time changeover in the meantime. But it will be at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, and at 5 p.m. in the UK, as usual, unless it hasn't been daylight savings yet in the UK, in which case we'll change that up.
Check this space.
But I also just wanted to say thank you to Kath and Dr. Sue for putting this wonderful film together that has been, again, on YouTube for 3 years and a non-monetized, so you won't have to watch ads in front of it, and making it free for everyone. And to Dr. Sue for joining us every month to keep this conversation going. We have done a number of lives that totals 30 now that are specific to topics directly related or tangentially related to the 24 behaviors in the Ridden Horse Pain Ethogram. Really detailed discussions about so many important topics like saddle fit and understanding imaging that comes through selecting your veterinarian, so many different topics.
Ulcer syndrome.
Also, gastric ulcer syndrome. So we have a whole playlist. I have ideas about breaking that YouTube playlist into smaller playlists that might be a little bit more functional organization, but you can flip through that whole playlist and see whatever topics have meaning for you. And I also want to say thank you because we have received donations from so many of you who are appreciating our work, appreciating the free resources that we're providing, and all of those things do cost money. And so we appreciate you supporting our work moving forward, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody again next month to keep this conversation going. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap things up and see you all in a month.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.